Good morning, class. So now we are finally on the last section of the respiratory system, and this is when things go wrong. So first off, pause the video. You can see that I have changed the information in this section. Thought more a little bit about it and how I wanted to present the material and what I'm expecting you to know, and this is how I have it. In terms of what could be asked on the test, carbon monoxide poisoning, hyperventilation, and hypoventilation. However, since most of you guys are going into healthcare, I've also included tuberculosis, asthma, which I think I spelled wrong, that it's not ashma, it's asthma, with a T in it for some reason. And what diseases can be triggered by smoking. Those will not be tested on, but we're going to talk about it here because if you're going into healthcare, you're going to need to know those things. So, first and foremost, carbon monoxide poisoning. I'm sure that if you have ever seen a crime show, this one has come up. It's a form of, or it's kind of a common form of unaliving yourself, where you would essentially stuff the back of a car's muffler and sit in the car. Carbon monoxide comes from burning of just combustion of things, commonly fires, cigarettes, exhaust fumes, engines, heaters, and stoves. Now, we have been talking about a lot of times carbon dioxide, or CO2, and compared to CO. Now, you may not think that that one oxygen molecule makes a huge difference, but it's actually a world of difference. And the reason for that is because of what that loss of oxygen allows carbon monoxide to do. It reversibly binds with Hb. If you remember Hb, hemoglobin. By doing this, it produces carboxyl hemoglobin, which occupies oxygen binding sites with 200 to 300 times stronger affinity than oxygen. Take a second to think about what that would do and why that would be considered lethal. Let's break it down step by step. Carbon monoxide changes hemoglobin's shape. By doing that, it increases its affinity for oxygen, and it decreases the amount of oxygen released to the tissues. So when you have carboxyhemoglobin, if we scroll up and looked at this chart, carboxyhemoglobin does not want to give up oxygen, period. It's so difficult. It's like getting blood from a stone. Carbon monoxide will bind and change hemoglobin into carboxyl hemoglobin, which has 200 to 300 times more likely to hold its oxygen. Remember that the system only works because of that pressure gradient and that gas exchange, both at the tissues and at the lungs. If carboxyhemoglobin no longer gives up oxygen, you can breathe in all the oxygen that you want. It's never going to make it to your cells, and your cells are eventually going to die because they don't have oxygen to perform their function. Hyperventilation. Breathing in. This happens when you have high PCO2, or high partial pressure of carbon dioxide, or H+. Now remember, all the way back when we talked a little bit about how carbon dioxide flows through the blood, it can either be in an acidic state or a bicarbonate state, which changes the pH level in your blood. If you have a high H+ concentration, it means that you are acidic. Because of that, the body recognizes, oh, I'm acidic. So the vagus nerve is stimulated, which increases ventilation rate. You are breathing faster than normal. By doing this, you lower the amount of carbon dioxide in your blood. Here is a nice photo of it so that we can actually look at it and walk through it together. So the effector, or the response. There's hyperventilation, additional CO2 is lost. So let's not start there. We're starting up here. So your stimulus. You have high partial pressure carbon dioxide, or H+, which is increased above its normal range. The chemoreceptors are going to detect that, and it is going to relay that information to the lungs. By breathing out faster, think about it, you are getting more oxygen out, or you're getting more carbon dioxide out of it, and that returns it back to your normal state. On the flip side, you have hypoventilation. This is when you have low partial pressure of carbon dioxide, or H+, meaning that your blood is more basic. This triggers hypoventilation. It's the exact opposite of hyperventilation. It's inhibited, which decreases this rate and increases carbon dioxide in the blood, restoring homeostasis. Photo of this looks like this. Now, you may be thinking for a second, well, isn't carbon dioxide a waste product? Why would I not be in hypoventilation all the time? Homeostasis, homeostasis, homeostasis. Your body loves to have set specific ranges for everything. While you may think, well, it's a waste product, why shouldn't we just have any of it? Why don't we get rid of all of it? It's critical for maintaining the acid-base balance in your blood. If you would get rid of all of your carbon dioxide, your blood would continue to be acidic, basic. With this problem, you are going to have issues all over in terms of the affinity for things to go in and out of the blood, as well as it's going to mess a lot with homeostasis. Same concept here. There's low partial pressure carbon dioxide or proton concentration. You are going to start breathing slower. In this way, it then returns it to normal homeostasis. So for hyperventilation or hypoventilation, understand this concept where what triggers it and how are we going to fix it. Same thing here as well. What triggers hypoventilation and how are you going to fix it? Now, tuberculosis, asthma, and diseases caused by smoking is just more for conceptual knowledge and information on yourself. First off, TB. If you are ever traveling anywhere, especially Africa, Africa, the Amazon rainforest, and certain parts of I don't really know what to say, but usually when you travel, you have to get a TB shot. And this is because 90% of infections are asymptomatic, meaning that you might have it, but you actually don't know that you have it, meaning that you can spread it very, very easy, and you just have no idea. The symptoms of it are a persistent cough with blood-tinged septum, kind of a mucousy more thing, fever, night sweats, weight loss. And what happens with those symptoms is the alveolar infection triggers inflammation. The immune cells attempt to wall off the infected area, and this results in a granuloma. To define granuloma, I'll give you the strict definition. It's our clusters of white blood cells that block off bacteria. But think about this. When you made chocolate milk, or if you guys use any supplement powders or anything like this, if you ever get those like clusters of clumps of powder, even though you've mixed it and everything, and you're like, how does this make sense? It's because all of the outside is wet and the inside is still powder, and it can't penetrate it because the outside is wet. TB does the exact same thing with white blood cells, which is why it's so difficult for your body to fight off TB on its own. Because you have essentially let me pull up paint. If you have TB right here, and you have white blood cells all around it, it actually won't be able to finish it or eat it off because of how resilient TB is. But by doing this, it's essentially protecting TB as well, because it won't be eaten. It's formed a granuloma, and you can't really get into it. I like to think about it as the powder when it's just covered with water. Asthma. Asthma has been continuously on the rise. A lot of people have it, and I'm sure that you know somebody who has it. They have those nice little inhalers which help combat some of the symptoms. It's an obstructive disease in which the airways are hyper-responsive to a variety of triggers: dust, mold, pollen, animal dander, and after exposed to the trigger, 3 responses are expected. Now, after I show you these responses, think critically about how that little would change it, and then see if you're right. So the first one, bronchoconstriction. It's when those bronchioles and everything in your lungs squeeze, so you're less efficient in getting air to flow through your lungs. It's also increasing the production of mucus, because the body thinks that there is a lot of pathogens or a lot of gunks or something's in there that shouldn't be in there, so let's trap it. This is a twofold thing, and it's one of the reasons why you have such a difficulty breathing. Following on this, you have each response causes significant and airway resistance, and even in the absence of a trigger, airways of people with asthma are slightly inflamed, contributing to hyperresponsiveness. So people who have asthma have always a slight inflammation of their bronchioles, meaning that they're more susceptible to having respiratory issues and will hyper-respond to it because it's always irritated. Each of these responses will trigger that airway resistance, and that's why they have such a difficulty breathing. The medicine inside is a steroid that if the response is bronchoconstriction, that bronchodilates. Address the symptoms and you address the problem. Lastly, what diseases can be triggered by smoking? It is a laundry list. Smoking is objectively, I think, one of the worst things that you can do for your body consistently, simply because of how important the respiratory system is and how you are essentially just consistently irritating it and introducing things. One of the most common ones is going to be lung cancer. Most people know this one. However, asthma is another one, and let's just run the list. Lung cancer. Lung disease like chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, emphysema, chronic bronchitis, heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, eye disease, reproductive health-related effects with association to the fetus inside of you, like a lower birth weight, congenital malformations, miscarriage, other diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, erectile dysfunction, premature aging. If you can, stay away from smoking. And then I really shouldn't be promoting, but it is important to understand that, we're all adults here. You can make your choice. If you are going to smoke, I'm not going to stop you. However, vaping originally was designed to be a healthier way to consume nicotine. Now, granted, smoking is never healthy. You are still inhaling hot smoke, toxins, and tar, just in a different way, but it is objectively healthier than smoking. But the most healthy one is to not do it at all. This is a very short section because I think that there's so much already to cover for the respiratory system, so good luck, guys. You can do it.